priestess turned the ring on her index finger. It was not a particularly ornate piece of jewellery and did not look out of place with her other fineries, except this ring would expose the threat to her church. Vielin's church. Lilith's church. Ever since the construction of a competing faiths establishment had started, an irritatingly handsome priest from Soror had moved into town to oversee its completion. He had already attempted to make headway with converting her flock to the Arcos faith. A similar transition had been occurring in the city of Soror for quite a few years, and it seemed that it was no longer confined to the massive city. The Lilith and Arcos faiths had always coexisted along with Paradis. The gods were all family after all. There was something unnatural about the current trends of people abandoning their churches and temples and shifting to the Arcos faith. After meeting the priest overlooking the development of the Arcos church in Vielin, she understood the threat. The man was sickeningly attractive. He seemed to wield a power over everyone he spoke to. She felt its pull when he introduced himself. To her, it felt like a thick tar that you couldn't escape from, with the back of your mind whispering, "Give in, give in." The priestess had only ever been attracted to women her whole life, and that's why she knew something was happening with this priest beyond the laws of nature and the gods. It was magic. Clergy were to never use any arcane arts, innate, trained, runic, or otherwise, on threat of public execution. If anybody saw the rune inside the ring she was still fiddling with on her finger, she was as good as dead. She'd acquired the ring through a certain avenue in the Merchants Guild that travelled through Vielin from time to time, asking the right questions of the right people, and here she was, with the tool that could expose this priest, possibly even the entire Arcos clergy, of what she knew in her core was going to be a horrible secret. She had invited the priest to dinner under the guise of establishing ground rules of how the two faiths could happily coexist. He of course obliged her invitation and would no doubt wholeheartedly agree to the two churches working together for the good of the people of Vielin. The priestess also had no doubt that after all was said and done, he would completely disregard any agreements made here tonight. There was a knock at the door and her heart started pounding, in part due to the intensity of the current situation, but also unnervingly because she felt the need to see him again. The door opened and in walked the priest. That disarming infectious smile etched on his perfect face. As he approached her, she could feel the gravity pulling her to him. She stood without a thought and an unexpected smile broke out across her face. His impression was causing her to feel like a giddy schoolgirl. "The beautiful princess," he exclaimed dramatically, throwing his arms wide. The priestess giggled despite herself and drew towards him, a shark-like grin on his face. Internally, the priestess was screaming. What the hell was happening? She felt powerless to resist and knew if he requested it of her, she would even abandon her own faith for him. She would abandon Lilith. He reached out to grasp her hand and lift it to his lips for a courteous kiss. As soon as his hand slithered into hers, the ring on her finger heated briefly and the illusion was broken. The priestess stumbled back. A smiling, albeit confused-looking corpse now stood before her. Alright guys, we're back in Vielin. We can see the little church of Lilith in front of us right now. This is the original founding church within this town. They follow the same faith as the royal family in Soror. You can see I've tried to do a lot of work with texturing for this particular build. I really want to try and up my game when it comes to texturing. We've added a little graveyard out the back here just for some extra detail and a little tree there. I like how this has turned out. Tried to use the same stones that are spread through the rest of Vielin just for consistency, because I feel like that's what they would be using. They would be sourcing that material locally. Same for building the church itself. You can see some of this tan sandstone right here. I've put a little add-on piece to the church, so we've got the original building. At some point at a later date, they've added to the side here. We'll take a little squiz inside. The very basics, we've got the pole pit up the front here and the seating for the congregation. So the priestess would stand up here and conduct her sermons. I really like how the roof has turned out on this one. The big strong beams holding up the roof structure I think look really good. And we've kept the rocky sort of interior on the inside as well, the rustic sort of feel that that's got. We also have a little bit of a confession booth in here. Members of the congregation would sit in here and speak to the priestess, confess their sins. Bit more of a traditional sort of style, real world church. But I've got the priestess here, she doesn't mind a little bit of a tipple, so she's got like a nice little glass of wine there while she listens to the people talk about their problems. She sits back, has a little sip of her wine. Out here is access to that graveyard as you see coming through. And it's sort of positioned in the middle of the town, in the middle of the original town. Like I said in a previous video, Vielin's probably going to end up a lot bigger. I've ended up moving where I was going to build the tavern to over here, and the sawmill is going to be further out as well. I think it sits nicely, nestles nicely in the centre of the town here. It's going to be a really nice view when you see the keep built up on the hill behind it. Overall, the builds come together really well. I like the weathering in the roof as well. It looks really, really good. Alright, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. We've still got a lot more to go with Vielin in regards to building in this space, so I look forward to creating some more unique sort of architecture through the area and expanding the story that we've been writing so far. Okay everyone, thank you very much for watching and we'll see you next time.